Interject again, Neil. I have been sent a book by a chap who was at one of my lectures. He's written a book. I forget the name of it. I can put it on the screen. But the central theme in there is that Brexit was engineered in order for some very large business interests to make a whole load of money.
Yep, probably. I said this before. Again, like I have no strong opinion on whether it's good or bad. Voting in Brexit was like being a child and choosing a boarding school. Doesn't matter where you go, it doesn't matter what you decide, you're going to get screwed by an older, richer person. Mm-hmm. So that's what it is. Like, the DUP gave money to Cambridge Analytica. They're doing quite well now, aren't they? Mm-hmm. Strange. And they have a similar hideous right-wing ideology.
I described it as deciding which dog turd you're going to stand in.
Exactly, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's another way. In the 2050 PR Week, Cambridge Analytica Director of Programme Development Brittany Casier stated, Cambridge Analytica only started working with Leave EU more recently. The firm's teams of data scientists and analysts would be enabling targeting messaging by understanding why certain things worry people. Cambridge Analytica, Leave EU confirmed that Cambridge Analytica were helping them map the British electorate. Andy Wigmore explained, a Facebook like was the most potent weapon because using artificial intelligence as we did tells you all sorts of things about that individual and how to convince them with what sort of advert. And you know that there would be other people in their network who liked what they liked, so it could spread. The computer never stops learning and it never stops monitoring. When he was told that was creepy, Andy Wigmore said, yeah, no it is. That's why I'm not on Facebook.
Right. So someone's got a fear of worms and they make that known on Facebook, and then sometime later they get a message saying that Trump's going to sort out all the worms.
In a very, very simple way, So basically people were manipulated by billionaires connected to UK and US military, and they used fear and psyop tactics by mining your data and social media posts through like complete surveillance in order to manipulate your feelings. That's
when you take up a Facebook account, you create it. There's nothing in there that says we have a duty to not pass on your data to a third party.
That's how they make money. That's what Facebook is. Facebook is a data mining. I mean, Peter Tile, who runs Palantir, was the initial financer of Facebook.
But there's nothing in that agreement when you sign up to Facebook to say that the data will stay within Facebook.
No, on the contrary, it's the opposite as far as I'm aware. Yeah.
So when you posting private messages on Facebook, folks, Facebook have every right to give it to whoever they want or sell it to whoever they want to for money for political purposes.
Yeah, I mean, we're not even talking about the JTRIG and GCHQ and so the data. This is
private.
This isn't
government spying.
Campaigning.
This isn't government spying. It's private companies doing this.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I believe that they have actually got connections to the government.
Yeah.
But ostensibly, this is perfectly above board, perfectly legal, and not at all sinister. After the success of Brexit, Cambridge Analytica, basically Robert Mercer said that Brexit was a test to see if the mood was right to get somebody like Trump in, which again leads to my concept that there's a coup of some description going on, whereby basically these people who have a certain ideology want to get their position.
So they used the same tactics to make Brexit win as they did to get Trump in then?
Yeah. After Brexit, they basically decided that they were using in America they admitted doing it. In England, they admitted it and then later denied it. Okay, in America, they admitted that was what was the point. Data mining, micro-targeting, manipulation.
So what about, if we just stay on Brexit a second, what about the viewpoint that joining Europe is a step towards a world government and that the most powerful people on the planet are marching the UK and other countries in Europe to a world government? So surely they would be using those techniques to get us into Europe.
Maybe they would. I don't know. Or say I don't know. I'm not saying that you made the wrong vote. I'm not saying you made the right vote. All I'm saying is a very specific class of very wealthy people with very specific connections to US military industrial complexes, the Pentagon and British psychological operations wanted you to vote that way.
Yeah. I mean, this is just a level of sophistication so much higher than the guy in the street who used to stop you and say, "Will you be voting Conservative, sir?" what is the issue that upsets you the most? Do you want this? That's how they used to do it, isn't it?
It's hidden, it's underhanded. That's the frightening part.
And it could potentially have information that you would never dream of even sharing to anyone, isn't it?
Totally,
So,
absolutely, totally. I mean, this is totally the problem with it. But this is not the first time that something like this has happened as well, right? Okay, it's slightly different, but this is what I was trying to explain. If they will do this in Australia, very wealthy people have got agendas, and they'll do it in Europe, and they'll do it in America, and they'll do it in England as well. And again, it's not to criticise anyone that's voting in a particular way. It's just curious that these people wanted you to vote in that way.
I mean, another point perhaps to make, Neil, is that there's only a certain percentage of people that are on Facebook. A lot of people who are, say, on Facebook, they might use it once a month. They're not regular users. So this has been done only using a section of the population.
Don't think they're on Twitter, you don't think they're on 4chan, you don't think they're on Reddit, don't think they're on 8chan. Okay, and with some of those, 4chan, for example, you preach it to the converted. It takes a very small amount to get somebody in the perfect way. We've just found out about this, okay? Because they admitted it in America and got caught out in England. So, yeah, I'm sure you're absolutely right. It's only very, that's not the broadest spectrum.
Generally, you're younger voters, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But, get them young. Indoctrinate them, and it's very difficult to change their views. But as I say, this isn't the first time that underhanded tactics. This is very slightly different. But I'd just like to talk a little bit about LulzSec or anti-sec and the FBI and Stratfor. Stratfor is, again, it's a private sort of like a sort of private CIA almost. It's a defence contractor that is technically a private company, but it has interactions with American government.
Probably full of geeks.
No? I don't. Well, yeah, but some dangerous ones as well. If the CIA is full of geeks, it's a similar type of thing. Now, basically, there was this hacker collective that was an offshoot of Anonymous. Obviously, we know Anonymous, and this was called LulzSec. Lulz as in laugh out louds. LulzSec, it was a hacker collective, and it was an offshoot of Anonymous. They were so good that LulzSec actually hacked and shut down the CIA's website at one point.
And just to make a point, because we spoke about Assange and about how Assange was a very proficient hacker, and he had all of these charges against him, and it's my belief that he was then recruited at some point because he was useful to them. And I think that seems to be what happens to a lot of the good hackers. They will then work for, because I think there was a chap named, I forget his name, who went to work for DARPA, who was a hacker. So anyone who's going to be a danger to whatever, a hacker, they're going to get recruited. They are going to get recruited and offered that to work for.
It's certainly one way. I mean, there's been instances where hackers used to do that. They used to basically find back doors and then tell the company who found this back door, pay me and I'll show you how to close it up or whatever. One of the members of LulzSec was this very prominent hacker by the name of Sabu, S-A-B-U. Now, he was one of the very first people to suggest and promote Occupy Wall Street. He was also involved alongside a very famous hacker called Jeremy Hammond in the hacking of Stratfor. Now, Stratfor, as I said, is a private intelligence contractor with shady links to the US government. Bizarrely, the editor-in-chief at InfoWars was an intern at Stratfor for a year and a half. And InfoWars started in exactly the same town as Stratfor at exactly the same time. And Alex Jones has been accused, I don't know if that's true, but Alex Jones has been accused of being connected to Stratfor. Just before Occupy Wall Street, Sabu formed another, even more hardcore hacker group, which was called Anti-Sec. And via this organisation, Sabu was basically training people to hack large corporations. And on Christmas 2011, Anti-Sec released a load of emails that were hacked from Stratfor. Stratfor is like a non-governmental CIA. They do private investigation work for military contractors and government and organisations. One of the things that Antisec did was they stole credit card numbers from Stratfor's clients and actually gave $700,000 away to charity. Like, now this was actually, again, had to be returned, but it's quite Robin Hood-esque, isn't it? Now, the Stratfor emails revealed that Goldman Sachs and Stratfor were looking at doing a possible insider trading scheme, which would have been illegal. Stratfor was attempting to smear a journalist by promoting the false idea that they were an Al-Qaeda operative. The Bank of America had employed techniques to spy on and collect data about Occupy Wall Street activists. And Stratfor was monitoring and reporting on dissent against the Dow Chemical Company, particularly due to their response to the Bhopal chemical explosion that killed thousands 25 years ago. So, like, even 25 years afterwards, they're monitoring people to see anti-sentiment against major blue-chip corporations. One of the things that the emails exposed was that trapwire is actually used in far more cities and venues than had been previously admitted. Trapwire is yet another of these Palantir-type panopticon data mining things. It's involved in CCTV. If you've ever seen that film, A Scanner Darkly, at the beginning where he's walking along and the CCTV camera picks him up and they do a facial recognition and they get his entire history up, and his criminal record and, you know, all aspects of his life that's been data mined from everything else, and then you can immediately tell that, you know, it's a tracking device and stuff like that. That's what trapwire is. Trapwire is basically it's in many American cities, despite the fact that they actually deny that it is. Now, there was only one problem with this whole scenario, is that during the entire time that this went on, Sabu was an FBI informant. Okay, so Sabu was arrested on June the 7th, 2011. The following day, on June the 8th, he turned FBI informant. Antisec was formed on June the 19th. So the FBI formed Antisec and they immediately started training other hackers to hack large corporations and encouraging them to hack large corporations. Then in September, Sabu is instrumental in promoting Occupy Wall Street, which means that the FBI were instrumental in promoting Occupy Wall Street.
And was that done via Facebook to promote it?
It was done by Twitter.
Right.
There was also an advert in a magazine called Adbusters as well.
Because I know that in the UK, the Occupy movements were started on Facebook.
Yeah.
A lot of it was done
with social media, absolutely.
Yeah, social media,
because,
social media.
Well, it was, I think originally it was kind of supposed to be connected to Anonymous, really.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, what's interesting is that during the Occupy Wall Street, Anonymous were saying they were going to hack all these banks and shut down Wall Street.
Right.
Sabu intervened, told them to stop it.
Right. So now I do know one or two people who were involved in the Occupy movement in the UK, and I would say that those people were genuine people.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Who were wanting to change the banking system and get rid of corruption. And
this is not
really good
criticism
motives.
of those people, just like it's not a criticism of voters of Brexit or Donald Trump. It's just.
But you think that that the whole concept and the idea came from the intelligence agencies or the FBI for Occupy. So it was just a little test.
It would appear so.
That will be quite annoying news to some people who were involved and committed months of their lives living on the street thinking that they were doing something.
Well, again, then Antisec also hacked Stratfor. So the FBI essentially hacked Stratfor. This led to the arrest of Jeremy Hammond and the arrest of various other people.
So let's just look at the bigger picture then. Why would American intelligence and possibly British intelligence kind of set up these protest movements?
See who's going to go for it. See who's going to go along with it. It's another data mining program.
Right.
Like,
and you think that they're maybe practicing their responses, maybe how to respond to
entirely possible. Like, I'll guarantee that basically every single person that was at Occupy, any of the occupiers, you've been photographed and your details are on the line or on a file somewhere. Like, you know, it could be just as simple and straightforward as in the event of a popular uprising, whose door do we need to kick in first? Or something like that. You just don't know. Again, I'm not sure of the motivation specifically. I don't know how Mercer and Farage and people like that are going to make money from Brexit. I mean, they're hedge fund managers, so you know they make money from chaos. I don't understand why William Regenery exactly wants a white ethno-state in America, but they do, and they're desperately trying to sort of promote this. So I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. I just know that I'm very troubled by the amount of underhanded manipulation that's gone into all of these things, and specifically because many people, as you say, have really gone for this wholeheartedly. And this is not a criticism of those people, right? Okay, this is not a criticism of their cause or their opinions or anything like that. This is just rich men get really rich in chaos,
Right.
and then they're creating chaos.
Right. So do you think there's some interplay between, let's call it the business world, for want of a better word, these multi-billionaires who are trying to influence the outcomes of the election and Brexit, because they can, because they're so rich and they're crafty, right? Do you think there's a link between them and the security services?
Probably,
Or are they doing each other favours?
I would imagine so, because as I
Is
said,
it
like, you know,
like the security services might suggest this to one of these oligarchs? You do that, we scratch your back.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a
it's-
lot of, like, you know, criticism that's laid out against George Soros. Some of it is warranted, some of it is slightly thin. Like, he's given money to, say, Tides, which is a charitable organisation. That was then distributed, and certain charities in Ferguson, certain Occupy, Adbusters for one, where the Occupy Wall Street thing was paid for via a Tides thing. It's not a direct line in the same way that Mercer is, but what is true is that George Soros, for example, is connected to the Carlyle Group, and he was instrumental in promoting the similar types of things during the intervention into the former Yugoslavia. Like, he was spreading sort of like pro-US or anti-whatever sentiment via his sort of civic causes and stuff like that.
But these are the players who are really manipulating the outcomes of things like this.
Absolutely.
And we're led to believe it's Boris Johnson leading the campaign for this or that, or whoever. They're just minions and pawns, aren't they?
Absolutely. They're people that have positioned themselves to make a lot of money, basically. You know, perhaps they believe in that actual cause. Okay, I don't actually think they do. I think it's a you know, sales pitch. But yeah, that's certainly the case. There's very, very wealthy people connected to these institutions, and they, for whatever reason, are manipulating people to act and react in a particular way that is ultimately going to be beneficial to them, because otherwise they wouldn't be doing it.
Right. And so where does that leave, let's say, the UK Parliament, like Jeremy Corbyn or Tim Farron, although he's not there anymore, and I think I know why. Let's say Jeremy Corbyn got elected.
Yeah.
Right. This is all still there, isn't it? This is all of this sort of manipulation behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So
I mean,
how can you see any of this being sort of gotten rid of, or this sort of control using nefarious methods?
no, and if the wrong person gets in, like in Australia, they'll get him out.
Yeah.
That's the terrifying thing. Like, you know, there's so much manipulation going on.
Yeah.
And what they're doing at the minute is they're being very, very clever because of the mechanisms of social media and stuff like that, making people think that they've come to these realizations on their own.
I'm not trying to scare you out there, but you just think, including your private communications with Facebook and Twitter and all the others, you just think of all the information that you have output into that computer screen about your life.
Yeah, anything you do on the internet and on your phone is public.
And your phone.
Yeah, it's public.
Yeah. And someone can buy that information.
Yeah, and they do, and then they use it against you.
Right. Okay. All right. And Neil, is there anything else you want to add on that?
No, I think we've done enough.
Right. Okay. Remember, believe none of what you hear and only half of what you see. I'm Richard D. Hall. Good night. Welcome to Rich Planet TV. I'm Richard D. Hall. Now on Sunday the 1st of October, just after 10 p.m. Las Vegas time, another lone gunman incident was reported. The gunman is alleged to have killed at least 60 people and injured over 500, firing from the window of the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Hotel. He allegedly shot himself just before police entered his room. Las Vegas is 8 hours behind the UK. So this occurred just after 6 a.m. on Monday the 2nd of October UK time. Now just take a look at this Daily Mail article being reported at 2:45 a.m. on the 1st of October, which is not much more than 24 hours before the shooting at the Mandalay Hotel. It states that Boris Johnson began quoting the opening lines of Mandalay during a visit to the Shwedagon Pagoda in Yangon. But hey, it's just a coincidence. Now, you may be aware that I have produced a series of films about the Madeleine McCann case. You can watch them and download them free of charge from this link. So I'm just going to go through them because I'm launching a new project on today's show with regards to Madeleine McCann. So the first film that I produced back in 2014 was this over 4 hour long, 4 documentaries in one box set. Then The Phantoms. This looked at the alleged abductor scenarios. Then When Madeleine Died, ? This attempted to determine what the last credible piece of evidence was which proved Madeleine was alive. And then Madeleine, Why the Cover-Up? And this goes into various theories as to why the case may have been covered up. It also looks in detail at the role of Robert Murat within the case. So in total, over 14 hours of documentaries. So the new project that I'm launching today is I have compressed all of these films down into one box set. Okay. And this is it. This is the new cover, right? So Buried by Mainstream Media, the true story of Madeleine McCann, truth you won't see on television. Because when I produced the first set of films, I did negotiate with the TV company that I was involved with, and they refused to show these films. So this is truth you won't see on television. And like I say, all 4 box sets have been compressed into 4 DVDs. Right? Now, that does mean there's a slight drop in quality of the picture quality, but they're still very watchable. So each disc has 1 box set within it. Now let me explain the thinking behind this new box set. A lot of progress has been made getting the truth out about Madeleine McCann online. A lot of people who have watched alternative documentaries about Madeleine McCann, they're far closer to the truth, in my opinion, about Madeleine McCann because they've been lied to predominantly by mainstream media. So I'm trying to reach out to that audience. I'm trying to reach out to the audience that doesn't have an internet connection and buys mainstream newspapers. So the only way to connect to those people, if you haven't got your own TV channel, is to go out on the street and actually give them copies of the films. So that's what this project is all about. Now, if you go to this URL, madelinefilms.net, and you click on the download link, you can actually download each of these 4 discs, the compressed discs containing all of the films. So if you get 4 blank DVDs, you can make your own full box set with just 4 DVDs. Now it's up to you what you do with those DVDs. You can give them out in the street free of charge. You can charge a reasonable fee to recover your cost for burning the DVD. It's up to you how you go about that. But the image files can be downloaded free of charge. You can also download the printing for the front of the discs, and you can download the cover as well. So if you wanted to make your own box set, you can do that too. Now, not only that, I am providing some stands in order to help people promote these new DVDs. So let me just put these discs away first. So if you buy a Madeleine promotional stand, which I'm selling at cost, you will get an A-note poster, okay, and you will get a flat pack cardboard box. So you assemble or you put together the cardboard box and then you wrap your A-note poster to produce a Madeleine promotional stand. So the idea is that you go to your car boot sale or wherever or in the street and you use your Madeline promotion stand to put the box set on, thus. So as I say, if you want to hand out DVDs that you've paid for and burned yourself free of charge, that's up to you. If you want to charge a reasonable fee, it's entirely up to you. Now, the promotional stand poster can also be downloaded from the website. So if you want to make your own from scratch, please be my guest. So the idea is to reach out to those members of the public who haven't been enlightened by online videos and who have been brainwashed by mainstream media. Now, I've made the promotional stand to look a little bit like a mainstream newspaper in order to attract attention. Now, when people come to you and ask what it's about, obviously, then you can explain to them that all you're trying to do is get the truth out about the Madeleine McCann case, which has been largely buried by mainstream media. So as I say, you can make your own promotional stand. You can buy one for 20 quid, which is including postage. Now, if you want to get boxed copies, you can buy 10 copies at £6 each to resell. And it's up to you what you sell them for or whether you give them away. Entirely up to you. I would just say be reasonable. So if you go to richplanet.net/shop, you can find copies of these DVDs. You can buy them in blocks of 10 for £6 each. You can also buy the promotional stand for £20. Or you can make your own promotional stands. So the idea is to get as many people as possible distributing these DVDs on the street. Perhaps you might want to locate yourself in an interesting location, and I will be providing some prizes. If you send me a photograph of where you choose to put your stall, I will be providing some prizes for the most imaginative stall location. Obviously, we're trying to reach people who read mainstream newspapers. So perhaps there's a hint there as to where you can put your stall. I think car boot sales might be another good place to hand out these DVDs. Okay, now, as the title of my film suggests, the true story and the evidence of the Madeleine McCann case has been buried by mainstream media. What do I mean by that? Well, the most important evidence and information about the case has been drowned out by the 99% of news stories which have focused on bogus claims or just plain nonsense. To illustrate the behaviour of mainstream journalists in relation to this, I would like to share with you some communications I had earlier this year in April and May with a mainstream journalist writing for the impressively titled The International Business Times. Before we look at the emails Rich Planet received from the IB Times, let's point out their track record for reporting on the Madeleine McCann case. On the 28th of April this year, an article by Ewan Palmer looked at 5 theories about her disappearance. These were 1. Abduction, 2. Victim of sex predator, 3. Burglary gone wrong, 4. Walked out herself and was sold to gypsies, 5. Madeleine sightings across the world. This journalist is ignoring the evidence and ignoring public opinion by failing to mention the elephant in the room, which is the theory that the parents were responsible for Madeleine's death and disposed of her body, then fabricated an abduction. If one goes back in time further, we see that the IB Times have cut and pasted many of the Madeleine nonsense stories that have appeared in the UK media over the last 10 years. So you can understand why I was sceptical when the IB Times contacted me. I think it is important to read these emails in their entirety to illustrate their real motives. The emails were from a journalist called Josh Robbins. He wrote, "Dear Mr. Hall, my name is Josh Robbins and I am a reporter at the International Business Times UK. I recently attended the Plymouth leg of your speaking tour and am working on a story about the content of the show, primarily the section concerning the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. Incidentally, you can watch that talk from this link. It would be great if we could have a chat in the near future. Tomorrow, Monday, would be ideal. Thank you very much for your time and please let me know if we can talk or if you have any other questions. Sincerely, Josh Robbins." So I reply, "Hi Josh, I can only agree if you can guarantee me visibility of any article you intend to publish before it is published so I can check I am happy with it and have final approval. I would also have to insist that you include a prominent link in the article to madelinefilms.net. Thanks, Richard. He replies, "Hi Richard, I am sure you have heard this 1,000 times before from journalists, but I cannot agree to the terms of giving you final approval should we have an interview. I am sure you would not agree to giving the subjects of your films and books a final say about what they want or do not want to be said about them. Anyhow, it is my responsibility to give you a right to reply to the following points." He then makes these accusations. "You have produced films suggesting and insinuating that Kate and Jerry McCann deliberately covered up their daughter's death. You have done this to such a degree that it mounts to an accusation." Really? "You have produced films suggesting and insinuating that Kate and Jerry McCann were connected to a VIP paedophile ring and may have handed Madeleine to paedophiles to be abused. You have done this to such a degree that it amounts to an accusation." At the lecture in Plymouth, you quoted Peter Hyatt's view that Madeleine is dead, the death was not intentional, the McCanns have disposed of the remains in a hidden manner and they feel it will not be found. The cause of death may have included causing her to be very sleepy and a fall. They have feared being accused, the time frame must be questioned, and there's a strong possibility of sexual abuse. You then added, "Those conclusions line up very nicely with my 3 previous films on the Madeleine case. You have made money from performing lectures advancing these theories and selling DVDs, and a book advancing these theories. At the talk in Plymouth, you also insinuated that Ben Needham's uncle was responsible for the toddler's death when you said the 17-year-old uncle took him out regularly on the back of his moped. He, the uncle, also liked to drink. I hereby invite you to comment on these points, which will likely be published tomorrow, Thursday. Thank you very much for your time." So I reply, "Josh, I cannot agree to comment unless you allow me to see what you intend to publish. You state, I am sure you would not agree to giving the subjects of your films and books a final say about what they want or do not want said about them. This is an untrue statement. If I am interviewing somebody and they request to see a piece before it airs, I will usually allow this. I will also discuss with the interviewee any issues they have over accuracy and come to a mutually agreed program that represents their view. In my work, I present evidence and I express my beliefs, which are based on that evidence. There are no accusations, only expression of belief. I discuss the evidence, put forward theories, and express my personal belief. If you state in your article that I have made any of the accusations expressed in your email, then I believe this amounts to libel. Richard." So the article is then published, which features a photograph of me from 2009 with the title, "Richard D. Hall, a conspiracy theorist, produced over 7 hours of Madeleine McCann films." It goes on. "It is difficult to navigate the slew of Madeleine conspiracy forums without coming across references or direct hyperlinks to the films of Richard D. Hall. Hall's films, of which there are over 10 hours, are regarded online as the most authoritative account of the claims against the McCanns. Hall suggests that Kate and Jerry McCann may have covered up her death and that Madeleine may have been created as a result of a government clone experiment. IB Times UK recently attended a lecture by Hall in which he promoted his films and elaborated on his theories regarding the Maddie case. In an intro clip played to the audience before he took the stage, he noted that public attitudes were increasingly turning against the McCanns. Quote, "In the Madeleine McCann case, where there is a huge establishment lie, in my opinion, being told about it, the public really aren't buying it now, and there has been a bit of a sea change in that one issue," he said. Hall is a fierce critic and self-styled antithesis of the traditional print and broadcast or mainstream media, which he regards as being largely under the control of the government. So after they published that article, I then emailed him just to request a correction. "Hi Josh, I would like to request you correct something in your article. I am a chartered electrical engineer turned investigative journalist. I do not refer to myself, and I am not a conspiracy theorist. This is derogatory in my opinion. I am still involved in some electrical engineering research. My investigative journalism is evidence-based. My professional qualification and accreditation are as follows." So he then replies, "Sorry for the late reply, and I appreciate your comments regarding your own working practices. It's not for me to make assumptions about how you work. However, it is an established principle of journalism, mainstream journalism if you like, that subjects do not get approval over copy. Imagine, for example, if you were to offer the McCanns final approval on your films. I do not think you would have any footage left in that case. But as I said, I do not wish to argue or make assumptions about your business. I am unwilling to correct the copy any further. I understand that the term conspiracy theorist may seem derogatory, and I do not wish to cause offence, but I think it adequately describes yourself, given your persistent advocacy of theories that point to an alleged conspiracy or conspiracies run by governments, security services and the mainstream media, etc. I am planning to write a small profile on you and your work, and I will be sure to include this and other brief accounts of yourself that you have offered in the emails. The invite to have a chat remains open. Thanks very much, Josh. So I then reply, hi, the established principle of journalism as you describe is fundamentally what is wrong with journalism. This principle is the reason your industry has such a disgraceful reputation. Why don't you present a piece about the evidence of the Madeleine McCann case, as I have done in my films? Why don't you mention that highly trained police sniffer dogs detected cadaver odour in 11 locations associated with the McCanns? Why don't you mention that there is no credible evidence from sources independent of the McCanns and their friends that Madeleine was alive after the 29th of April 2007? Why don't you print the conclusions of Peter Hyatt, a highly respected statement analyst, who concludes Madeleine died and the McCanns covered up her death? Why don't you ask questions about why the British Chancellor of the Exchequer was interfering with the Portuguese investigation? The cadaver dog evidence shows that a corpse was situated in the McCann's apartment for over 2 hours and at certain times was situated in the cupboard by the McCann's bed and behind the sofa. Why don't you report this? Why don't you print the statements made by 2 friends of the McCanns, both doctors, the Gaspers, who claim they heard Jerry McCann's friend asking him if Madeleine would perform a paedophilic act on him? This is given in 2 police witness statements, which are available to read online in the police files. Why don't you print those statements? Why don't you point out all of the lies that Robert Murat told the Portuguese police in his first witness statement? Why don't you point out that there was no damage whatsoever to the shutters, after which time the McCanns had told their friends and family that the shutters had been jemmied open? In short, why don't you focus on the evidence as I have done in my films? I am not interested in being interviewed by you. I am interested in you publishing the facts and the evidence of the case. This evidence is in my films, which you can watch here. The fact you do not focus on the evidence suggests you are not interested in reporting the important truth. The evidence itself is critically important in this case, and it has been largely ignored by your industry. Why on earth do you not want to report the evidence? Richard D. Hall, BN Johns, CNG. He then comes back. Hi Richard, you have not answered my point about giving subjects a final say. In particular, the hypothetical example about giving the McCanns those powers over your films. So it seems odd that you describe it as what is fundamentally wrong with journalism. It's actually a very common sense rule. Nothing critical would ever be written about anyone if they were allowed a final say over final content. The principle is combined with the duty to give subjects a right to reply, such as the one I offered you. And, as a last resort, there is libel law if subjects feel they have been defamed by an untruth. There are undoubtedly many reasons that journalism is held in such low regard, but I do not think that this principle is one of them. It is also odd that you have sent me a link to your films. You know I am aware of them and have seen them, because I refer to them in the article that you have asked me to correct. Why would you post the link? A cynic might think you are planning to use this email exchange to further promote your films on social media and in forums, rather than engaging in a purposeful discussion. Finally, I am not writing about the details of the Madeleine McCann case per se. I am writing about you and the way you make money. I will contact you again if further right of replies are warranted. Otherwise, farewell, and I wish you all the best in the future. Josh Robbins. So I reply, hi, I believe you are incorrect that the media follow the rule you described about having visibility of an item or input to it before it airs. Fiona Bruce recently interviewed the McCanns on BBC. You would have to be very naive after watching that interview to believe that the McCanns and or the people who are handling the McCanns have not had knowledge of how the interview was going to be portrayed and what questions were going to be asked before they agreed to an interview. Any impartial person would probably agree this interview was staged and choreographed to show the McCanns in the best possible light and that no probing or difficult questions were asked. The same can be said of many interviews the McCanns have given to the British media. So I would argue that you are fully mistaken in assuming that journalists do not on many occasions break this golden rule when it suits their agenda. The problem with this rule is it gives you the opportunity to distort and misrepresent your subjects as you see fit, but ignore the rule on other occasions. If I were to suggest a better rule, it would be to get a full statement from the interviewee that the interviewee is happy with. You could then challenge certain points and have a discussion over the piece and arrive at a narrative that both parties are happy with. You then present this to your reader as being the viewpoint of the subject. So the reader is fully aware that the information has not been distorted by the journalist, but represents the subject's view. Journalists could give their own opinion in their publications, but this should be kept separate from the content coming from the interviewee described above. This way, readers can determine themselves what content is the subject's viewpoint and what content is just the journalist's interpretation of the viewpoint. You state that if I were to interview the McCanns and allow them to have a final say, they would censor their interview to the point there would be nothing left. Can I ask you why you think the McCanns would do this? I am a reasonable person and I would ask the McCanns reasonable and relevant questions. So why do you think they would wish to censor the interview entirely? My questions would be based on the evidence. This suggests to me that you know the McCanns are protecting a secret. Your approach also suggests to me that you are too happy to help them protect their secret. The way your golden rule works allows you to deceive your interviewees into thinking they will be portrayed fairly and accurately, when this is in fact sometimes not the intention. Your industry abuses this golden rule, which is why I have to insist on seeing any article you intend to print before you print it. I am not a conspiracy theorist. I am a chartered electrical engineer. I can send you photocopies of my certificates if you need evidence of what I am. I passed exams in electrical and electronic engineering. I did not pass exams in conspiracy theories. Regarding making money, the Madeleine films have a notice at the beginning of every film explaining that permission is given for everyone to copy and distribute the films free of charge. I have made all of the films available to download the DVD image files so people can make their own DVDs free of charge. Here is the downloads page where you can make DVD copies of the films free of charge. When I produce a new film, within a few weeks of the release, it is uploaded to the internet for free distribution. The intention has been to recover my costs of production and distribution, not to make a lot of money. The income from these films represents a fraction of my overall income. In the year 2015-16, my income was low enough to claim tax credits. I have not made much money from these films. If you state that I made these films with the motive of making money, I consider this to be a libel. If you suggest I have made more money than covering expenses, then I consider this also to be a libel. The prime intention was